We are going to let this warm up here for a second. It always takes a couple minutes for it to actually stream everywhere. And also today, we are going to be streaming on Instagram. So let's see if we can get that working here. Okay, Instagram is live. I actually have to go over here and tell Instagram to turn on. All right, well, welcome everyone. We are live. This is the Weekly Wrangle. And if this is your first time joining, this is all about Houdini art reviews. It's all about announcements, hanging out, live Q&A, and having a good time. For today, what I'd like to do is start off with some announcements. I've been up to all kinds of stuff. I know that last month we didn't do the Weekly Wrangle. I think it landed on Christmas or something, so that's why I just decided to skip it. But I've been up to a lot of stuff. So let me share my screen with you and tell you about that. First things first, shading techniques has been updated. I went through here and I redid the vast majority of this course. Now, I'm still teaching the same stuff. It's just taught better. I think I taught this a couple years ago and there was some quality issues here and there. So fortunately, that is now upgraded. And for those of you that have been following this saga, you'll know that I was also working on a bonus section for this shading techniques course. And that actually involved into an entire new course that's all about Environments 1. So I started with this whole triplanar projection challenge. It started going crazy and, now we have a mountain in a full-blown environment. So I'm almost done with this course. I'm probably about 2 or 3 videos away from finishing this. This is actually where the course is at right now. We're just here in Resolve and I've been comping all of this stuff. And yeah, it's going to be awesome. We'll take a look at LiDAR scans, bring that info into an application called QGIS, which is an open source geography survey platform. And we're going to get super legit with just making epic large environments. So I'm really excited about that. That's been in the works. Also, starting at the end of February, I am working with Side Effects to start the very first Denver Houdini user group. So if you happen to live here in Colorado, then let's hang out. I just made this event on Saturday. So if you go to Meetup and search for Side Effects or search for this VFX animation game dev MoGraph meetup, you'll find this event right here with Mr. Chameleon Dude, and we can get together to hang out, network with each other, see what's happening around here in Denver, which is awesome. And besides that, I think that's really about it. Let me double check here. And then I guess also, if you guys haven't heard, I started a new Discord here. So if you're not part of this Discord, make sure you join that because I have all kinds of great channels here where you can get feedback for questions, people share their projects. And recently there was also a new section here for collaborations. So Owen here has been making this concept artwork and there's been a few folks jumping on this kind of fun side project to make some environments. Plus we have a pets page, which is pretty adorable. We have little Pepito right here and all kinds of fun friends. So that's about it as far as what's happening here at CG Forge. Okay, so looking here at the questions, let me pull that up real quick. We have Mohammed, what do you do now? Well, I am doing 3D, Mohammed, same as always. Where can we get the course? Well, so the course is going to be at cgforge.com. I haven't published it yet. I need to still export the videos and everything. I think it's about 6 or 7 hours worth of content. So it'll take me a good minute to get that on CG Forge, but I'm hoping to do so by the end of this week. And yeah, how many people will assist? What's the aim of the meetup? The main aim of the meetup is just to network, hang out, get to know folks around here in Denver. Denver has kind of a smaller Houdini CGI scene in general, it's kind of surprising because Denver has like 3.5 million people. It's a fairly big city, but it's not too hot yet when it comes to 3D graphics and animation. And so part of the group and what I would love to have it do is to find ways to spark up opportunities to have some local studios stop by and hopefully give folks some jobs and opportunities along the way. That would be, in my opinion, a home run for this Houdini meetup group. But it's also good just to know who's around and, hang out, grab a drink, that kind of thing. And last but not least here by Ola, got any plans for more procedural modeling stuff? I do, yes, actually. That is potentially, so right now I have Environments 1, then I'm going to do a Karma versus Redshift video, then it's Houdini for the New Artist 2. After that, I might look into procedural modeling. I know that's a very in-demand topic, so I am going to hit that at some point this year, which would be a lot of fun. Okay, well, without further ado, let's dive into some art reviews. The first one here is by Feodosia, and she is looking for some texturing and shading critique, which is really exciting. We have this puddles erosion, this, kind of transformation over time using materials, which is a really fun topic. And we have dry and wet concrete, just kind of showing the difference between those two states here. So scrolling down, we could see that this was used with Unreal Engine and Substance Designer, which is really cool, with a little bit of Nuke even. So it's good to show the variety of different skills and applications for texturing and showing that you can, take data and move it around. I think that's always a nice thing to show. For constructive critique, what I would do to improve this is take it up a notch by thinking about this transformation not just as like two different states, but like what happens to this thing over time. When we take a look at aged concrete, we can see that, yes, we do have some divots begin to happen here. And, maybe this stuff really starts cracking over time like this. And so if you were to take this up a notch, I would say look at just having an aged concrete in general. Try to see if you can add some interesting cracks. Like that would be really cool if you saw some cracks winding through that. And then think of that shallow water as just one layer amongst many that give you an aged concrete. And so that, I think, would really take this up to the next level. And the way that you can do that is just think about your target, where you want to go. Like, let's say this is the target you want. Probably not that, but whatever it is that you want to use for inspiration, hit that target and then find creative ways to introduce the various elements at that target. So if we have cracks, for instance, all right, we have one shader, essentially another shader. How do we get from A to B? Well, maybe you have a mask that is a triplanar projection of some other, texture, right? And then you can color correct that mask so that it just gradually over time spreads out in different areas. That could be an example of how you can have your destination and then use, like, let's say a triplanar signal to creatively reach that destination through, an animated parameter. So you would do that for, let's say, the cracks, for the color here, for all the various channels. And yeah, also including the water here. And I think that would really take this up to the next level. But really great job. I think that this is nice overall. Definitely a good start to things. The one last thing I would challenge you to do is to think about repeating textures. Specifically, there's a problem like this where we could see these lines going back. And that's just because when you have a triplanar projection or what have you, or just a repeating texture, it's noticeable when it goes off in the distance. And there are various ways to remove that repeating pattern. Side Effects just came out with the hex tile triplanar projection, which takes care of that. But also in my environments course, I use a different technique to remove this repeating pattern, where you can just take basically different rotations of the same shader and then mask it using various levels of noise. So play around with that. That's another good challenge to give yourself, and all of this is certainly in the right direction. So great job here, Feodosia. Okay, next up here, Alexander. We have Renderman, every day's as hobby. Cool. We have good old Flippy here too, spinning around, dancing. Let's see. So yeah, similar deal. We have Substance Designer. We have some Houdini action with some vellum, perhaps. Very cool. And then scrolling down here, we have this sticker, which I think is a great idea. You know, we have this sticker here. We're kind of folding it up with vellum, and it's a nice creative use of Substance Designer and Houdini, which is fun. So I think all this is going off in the right direction. I would say that your color palette is a tad bit washed out. Washed out meaning that you could probably take the midtones down a little bit. That's just my personal preference, but sometimes if you have like, if you look at your histogram and the curve is just kind of bending towards the whites a little bit, like in the middle, that's kind of what I feel like is happening here. So just take your midtones down a little bit, and I think it would make this pop a bit more. That could be one nitpicky thing. Another thing that I was thinking about here is if we scroll down, let's go down right here, we could see that this is integrating with the rubber toy, which is awesome. And this looks like a opacity map that's doing that. If you're from a distance, this works perfectly fine because, this won't be noticeable in terms of like it being realistic and interacting properly. But if we are this close to the sticker, then I would perhaps rethink or just make sure that, we're thinking about how this would actually look, because it really wouldn't be like a halfway opaque kind of thing, right? I mean, it would, like, for instance, this bottom right part of the sticker here, I mean, I guess sometimes things do scratch away, but it's almost like if we can keep some of the relief of the sticker and maybe like this is just painted over. I don't know. Like in my head, I pictured this blue here as like something that was painted over. You could think of that as it was scratched away. But yeah, it's really not that bad, but I would just maybe add a bit of contrast to this mask so that things are either scratched away or not scratched away, so that there's not this in-between zone that like areas like this kind of experience. It's nitpicky. I don't know. It's not really a huge deal, but it was just a thought that came to my head as I was looking at this. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's cool. I'm not sure exactly what kind of material this is. I'm assuming it's like a scratched up plastic. But, perhaps a good challenge here is to, I don't know, like make this a little bit more obvious. So like if this is a plastic, maybe add a bit more subsurface scattering, and that'll really make it feel like plastic, That could be one idea. Another idea, just looking at this, is we have a lot of wear and tear in these occluded areas. And it's good to use occlusion for this wear and tear, like along here. But you never want it to look like, like you did the whole occlusion trick and it's super obvious. Like you want to use these tricks and then cover your tracks. So what I mean by that is if someone can look at this and say, oh yeah, they did the whole occlusion thing, then to take it one more notch further, try to see if you can cover your tracks and still use that occlusion trick, but maybe have the edges like go out a little bit more. So it's not just this, solid edge where the occlusion stops. You know what I mean? Like taking this a little bit further than just the default occlusion. That kind of stuff I think goes a long way. And it's just a good look dev thing in general. Like anytime someone says, oh yeah, that person used a purlin noise, you know that, well, to make that better, sure, use a purlin noise, but do something else to make it look like you didn't just use a purlin noise. And that always, gets you creatively thinking about things to take it up a notch. But yeah, anyway, I like it. So great job here, Alexander. And thanks for sharing. I really appreciate it. All right, let's jump back here to the Q&A. What have I been missing? This is Thrace. Hey, good to see you again. Good to see you as well, Thrace. Pizzola is in Argentina. That's cool. I would love to visit Argentina one day. I think that'd be really cool. Got any plans for procedural modeling? Okay. Yeah, and then if you guys are interested in joining Owen on this collab, feel free to, again, join the Discord and hop in the fun there. And yeah, cool. Sounds great. All right. Moving on. We have Jose Molfino. I think we've reviewed Jose's stuff before. It's really good. Here we have some vellum. And if we full screen this right here, we can see this all coming together with the egg cartons. And it looks really nice. The fun thing about vellum is that it really forces you to think about like the movement of things, right? A lot of times when we're analyzing CGI, it's all about the lighting and the shading and all that. And, the movement is sometimes underappreciated, but this foam looks really awesome. I mean, it's still very active in the sense that it's very reactive to what's happening, but it's also not too jittery. And sometimes it's kind of difficult to get a nice combination of this thing is moving fast and like sporadically, but at the same time, it's not like bouncing too much and it's not too jittery. So I think this does a good job at dampening while at the same time keeping this active and exciting. So yeah, that's really great there. Also, the shading's awesome. I mean, if we just pause this for a second, we could see these tiny little highlights that foam has, and that's always a fun thing to do. Yeah, that's really awesome. The lighting's great. We have some subsurface scattering. It would totally have a lot of subsurface scattering, but it doesn't look like goo or something like that. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the foam, I don't know what would improve that given the situation here. I think it's pretty dialed in, to tell you the truth. We have the ropes here. They kind of, tighten in and then they loosen up, which is fun. Towards the end, maybe we are getting a tad bit too active. It's not that bad, but like down here, for example, I don't know if that would actually move. Like right down here, if you can see my cursor. So maybe just a tad bit more dampening here at the very end could be a nice little refinement. Also, I like the fact that it's in an environment. We have this backdrop with a little bit of a bump. I think it makes a huge difference. It definitely makes us feel more professional when you think about the backdrop. So if you guys are not thinking about the backdrop, I think you should. It's an easy thing to do to make it feel professional. And then let's just go forward a little bit more here. Oh, we might be freezing. Well, anyway, I think that this is working really well. In terms of improvement, like I said, I think for what it is, it's working out really well. So, great job there, Jose. Yeah, I'm trying to think of ways to improve it. I guess if you want a really good challenge, try to make the rope a little bit furry. It's not like super hard to do that, but it could add a little bit of fine detail, which would look nice. So yeah, great job. I don't know really what else to say about that one. It's really good. Okay. Let's check out the chat one more time here. This is from Andrew. Is it easy to transition from a mantra to karma in Houdini through shading? Yes, it can. The only thing you have to watch out for is the shaders that you use. Because if you're using Karma XPU, it is not going to be compatible with the Vex-based shaders that Mantra is used to processing. So long story short, yes, you can transfer from Mantra over to Karma, but just watch out because you need to use Material X. And that's probably going to be the most foolproof way of making sure that you don't have problems. But yeah, in general, it's easy to do. And if you're still using Mantra, it is 100% worth the transition to Karma just for the speed benefits. It's so much faster. And, you know, it's a little challenging to work with sometimes, but it's worth the learning curve, in my opinion. This is from Max. Where could I submit artwork to get feedback? Right here. Well, not in the pets page, but you can go here to project feedback on the Discord. Or here to complete a project, or, you know, just tag me here in the Discord. And then I'll pick that up and be happy to, you know, add your stuff in for next month. All right. Okay, if you're able to learn Houdini, nothing is a problem for you anymore. Well, Houdini will give you lots of problems, but you will be much more prepared, I would say, to learn anything you want. Okay, this next one here is by Tomas, and it's using Houdini and Redshift for this turtle. Beautiful texture work, beautiful model, and just the whole thing is totally rocking here. I'm not sure which parts we're using Houdini specifically. I'm guessing the scales, perhaps. This might have been procedural. And yeah, wow, this really looks fantastic. If we go through here a bit more, zoom out, the shapes here on the shell, the scales, especially the scales, those are hard to do because obviously you don't want to sculpt every single scale in ZBrush. Some people do it and they torture themselves for like a whole 2 months to literally sculpt out every little scale here. But I think that this is a good example of proceduralism at work here. And there's actually a scales tool that came out fairly recently. What's it called? I think it's, well, it might just be like Houdini scales if you Google that. But I'd be curious to know how Tomas did the scales here because they look fantastic and it really reminds me of that tool that came out recently. I'll look that up. And or you guys can too and just put it in the chat. But yeah, anyway, looking at this project here, great job. If I was to try to nitpick this and offer constructive critique, you know, I'd really have to look closely here because this is pretty darn good. But maybe the first thing that stood out here is the eye. I don't know much about turtle eyes here. You know, I don't spend time looking at turtle eyes on my off hours, but I might try to look at a bit more reference. And even if it's not reference, I would really pay attention to the lighting setup and specifically what kind of reflections are happening in the eye here. Because here's the thing, when you have these studio lights, and we could see that this is what's happening here, these big old soft lights, it looks cool, like in professional portrait photography, and maybe we're used to seeing that lighting setup in professional portraits, but for something like a turtle, it just doesn't fit as much. Rather than a studio setup, I think it would feel a bit more natural to have like a cloudy rainforest or a pond or, you know, something that integrates this guy a little bit better into where he would live. And if you changed up that lighting setup so that it did fit inside of a environment, you could still stylize it by getting some rim lights and throwing this and that in, but at least on the reflections of the eye, I think it would just feel more natural and it would feel less like a thing to focus on. You have to realize that your eye will always go for the areas of contrast. So if I have a white chunk right there, right next to a black chunk, when I say chunk, I mean like pixels, right? your eye will naturally go there. And in general, when you have a character, your eye goes to the character's eye because that's just what we do as living creatures. We seek to connect ourselves to another person or an animal by looking at the eyes. So this area is super, super important whenever you're making a creature or a character. And I would just, spend a bit more time thinking about this. I think this highlight's weird. It's probably correct because there's a studio light. But, if something looks a little bit off in the eye, it makes the whole thing feel off because that's where we look to right away. And so I would say that. Also, we're maybe clipping a tad bit over here. It's not too bad, but we're getting real close. So this is a great project, fantastic, and really good stuff here. Just great execution overall. Okay, let's see what we have here. And the mouth is a little bit dry. Yeah, he's got a little bit of cotton mouth going on. So, yeah, you might want to add a little bit more on that. Agreed. All right. I also want to let you guys know, I just found this when I was browsing around. There's this cool tutorial that Andreas Jensen here just released. So if you look up Andreas, which is Andrea SK_J, and look here at the comments, we have this tutorial link where he goes over some of the new cloud advection tools and cloud modeling tools. Plus, there's some cool lightning here in this GIF, which is always a nice looking thing. So I just want to share this with you guys because it looked like a really interesting blog post. If you guys are trying to do clouds, then looking at this could be an interesting study. I haven't had too much experience yet with the new cloud tools. I've kind of messed around a little bit and they're really neat, but yeah, if you are in the middle of studying that, then make sure to check this out. Okay, this next one here is a project that we talked about 2 months ago for the November Weekly Wrangle. And this is by Robin Konieczny. I think that's how you say it. And the reason why I bring this up is because Robin recently redid this whole thing and it looks fantastic. So last time I did a review on this, I was talking about, it's a little too blocky and the cloud layering and this and that. This is the latest version, and man, does this look a lot better. This looks fantastic. And I just want to point out a few things that are really working well here. When we look at this image, one of the first things I notice is the motion. The motion looks so professional because we have these jagged rocks on the bottom left. You might not be able to see those rocks because my face is in the way, but you have some jagged rocks on the bottom left. It's also just kind of generally pushing this way, or I guess on your screen it might be opposite. And then we have different diagonal lines that are going in a different direction from the God rays. So what I'm saying here is when we take a look at the silhouette of these elements, the God rays are coming down like this, right? That's one bit of motion that we see playing out. The lines of the ships are crisscrossing. And whenever you crisscross like that, it also provides depth, it provides drama. And then on our foreground, these elements are shooting that way. So all over the place, we are crisscrossing as much as possible. And then also we have some movement horizontally with the silhouette of these clouds, which really grounds everything. And so when you guys are thinking about your own compositions, try to find excuses to crisscross like this. It adds so much excitement and drama and depth to your composition. And then also think about different layers. One of the things I talk about in the environments course is that when you want things to feel big, it helps to have layers. We have these foreground rocks. That makes a huge difference when it comes to the depth that we perceive, right? Because there's no volumetrics here. There's no, haze from something being big. We also have brights and darks through the god wrist. This is bright, shadows are dark. That adds layering when you have brights and darks next to each other. We have this little bit of cloud right here that tries to signal how big this thing is. So little elements like that makes things feel big when it's right next to something. And then also we have various layers of clouds going back. We have this huge big in the sky cloud, and then we have these tiny guys, which could just be fog that's rolling in or just clouds in the back. But these are all just various excuses to layer and layer and layer things. And that all goes a long way. Every little bit that you layer is going to make this thing feel bigger. And this is a good example of that, happening successfully. So I want to point this out. This is a fantastic improvement to what this was before. And yeah, also just a great example, guys, of how you can have a great project like this, but it's not done unless you want it to be done. And if you keep on going and going and going and going, and you, especially for your personal projects and for the things that, maybe you put in your demo reel, it's all about quality. And if you just keep on going with it, it's not like you're wasting anything by switching things up, right? So don't be afraid to just keep going on projects if you see something that can be improved, because this is a great example of someone who just kept on going and then really reached that next level by switching things up. So fantastic job here, Robin. And yeah, thanks for sharing. Okay, I think we have about one more section here. Let's take a look at the chat real quick, though. Let's see. What is better, easier, and faster to learn for VFX, Unreal Engine or Houdini? I mean, if you're talking about VFX, I would say studying Houdini seems more applicable. Unreal Engine is used in VFX applications, but it's not the primary thing that gets used in VFX. Unreal Engine's great if you want to get into video games, VR, if you want to get into real-time production of this and that, but it's not like that's the staple for VFX work. VFX cares about quality above all else, and that often means doing things in a non-real-time engine and then compositing them together with Nuke, usually. So, yeah, I would say if your aim is VFX, then study Houdini. Okay. When will we get to see some Tyler original works? Yeah, well, what I try to do is I try to have some original works that I then turn around and teach. Now, that's not the same as what I can do if I didn't have to teach it, because, mind you, when I turn around and teach something, it takes me 10 times longer than it would if I just made it. So, it's really not on the docket at the moment as far as like side projects go. Usually if I have extra time, I'm spending it playing music or looking up finance stuff for fun, or, hanging out and getting outside of the computer for a bit. But, one of these days, I definitely want to do a original artwork, and maybe even this might be a fun idea where I do some kind of live stream or some kind of, I guess a live stream or a pre-recorded thing where I just go for an idea and I don't really teach it. I just do it, right? I don't have to slow myself down. It could be an idea. I am focused more on getting some courses done, but then after I have a good, solid curriculum made, I think I could explore that sort of thing. Not in the near future, but definitely something I might throw in there at some point. All right, this here is Rickshaw Run 24. This was made by a variety of folks. The team here, layout, look development, and lighting by Diva Karen, Yona, Mateo, all these folks here. Zach with effects and rigging, Mateo compositing, D motion design, Hannah Spillers for animation, Bella So for sound design, and Robin Uotia. Sorry about the name there. For the music editor. All right, let's check this out. This was made at the Mill with Savannah College Art and Design. Yeah, speaking of large environments, there you go. There's some of that. All right. Cool. I like it. You know, it's a nice little bit here. Let's tear it apart and compliment it at the same time, shall we? I do love this little map section. I think it's really cool. It looks like we took Google Earth or something and we just, overlaid that, which it totally works. This is the first establishing shot here. And being that we were just talking about large environments, I could perhaps say a thing or two about this sort of thing. It depends on what style you want here, okay? This is stylized, though, because mountains never just go up in one big spike. Now, that's not a bad thing, but it is to say that this is certainly stylized. You could try to take an actual scan of that region if you wanted more realism. Another idea is if you took a scan and you had realism and then you sculpted it to make it stylized, you could start with realism and then stylize realism. I always think that's probably the best way to go about it if you do want a stylized approach. But yeah, in terms of the shapes, it's cool. Looking here at various things, we have some rocks that are instanced, it looks like, some plants. I do like the foreground here, having these tiny little buildings and little plants and rocks and whatnot. I think that's all very nice. Perhaps my biggest critique, though, is I think it's a little bit too hazy. I think that can be a little less hazy in the foreground, or just a little less hazy in general, but especially in the foreground, I think that'll add some depth. And then also the lighting. I think it would be nice to see a bit more of a directional lighting here. Like if you were to pick up some harsher shadows along some of these features, it would really bring out all the instancing detail that's there to use. And so if we had these rocks here and they were casting shadows, and maybe you even had some clouds casting shadows along the mountains here, any darks and brights and layering of that kind of sort will add depth. And you can definitely achieve that if you had a bit more of a directional light happening here. So that's definitely one thing that I think could be helpful here. And then again, thinking about motion, if you are going to go stylized, try to really exaggerate some of the motion here. I mean, we have right now, if we just try to sketch over the silhouette here, right? We have this, right? And so on and so forth. Or I guess the mountain kind of goes more up. So it would be like that and that. But how can we crisscross this? Is there some kind of excuse we can have to either level things out or to go this way with things or, stuff like that? Well, there might be. If we take a look at this shape here, we could try to swing this around, and then these rocks right here, if we try to, light them and get a strong silhouette, they could try to, point that way, and that might add a bit of tension. We could take this whole thing and make it a big U shape by just trying to, almost fold it in a little bit, and then it's all there to basically be a big old tunnel that takes the eye up here towards the mountain. And so just by being aware of these motions that happen in the composition, it can give you an idea of how to really use that intentionally and push this further, especially if you're trying to make this stylized, which would be really cool. So that is a few ideas here. Let's keep on going though. All right, we have this stuff that's kind of bouncing a little bit. I think that the bouncing here feels a little bit unnatural just because it doesn't fall down fast enough. Like it almost kind of has a lot of hang time happening here. And it's subtle, but in real life, if you were to look at this thing, it wouldn't just like hang in the air unless this whole thing was like falling or something. So I would just either make it a little bit faster or, see if you can simulate that kind of thing just so that it doesn't, just so that you're not guessing what gravity does. Whenever you're guessing what gravity does, it's really hard to get that right. Texture-wise and whatnot, I would say it's okay, I would, like we were saying before, like whenever you use a noise, like a purlin noise or something, and you don't do anything to cover your tracks, it kind of looks like this, where it looks all right, like it's not bad. But if you had more, let's say, defined borders in this texture, and you just added more contrast to that mask, and then maybe layered on a few things like a triplanar projection to that mask or something like that, then this would feel a bit more defined and less blurry. And so when you're texturing, you got to think about these shapes as how decisive are you in showing something, right? And often what makes something professional is being decisive, meaning that you have less of these gray values and something either is or is not something. So just in general, that's just a nitpicky thing. Anyway, we go here. Now we really get some hang time. That's cool. Go back down. And then we have this. For the smoke, I think that this takes too long to really develop. It needs to be closer to the wheels and happen sooner. And yeah, and then, it casts a little bit of a shadow, but I would have this smoke progress a little bit further, spread out a little bit more over the road. Maybe be a little bit thicker as well. I think it's a little bit too thin. But I do like the grass, and I do like this kind of thing. And we actually have some directionality on our lights, which is really cool. So, great job, everyone. I think that this Rick Shaw project is super cool. And yeah, good job. Let's take a look at the chat here a little bit more. Where is the best place to get a hold of that scan data? I use the U.S. Geological Survey website. So it's a whole process. But if you type in USGS LiDAR scan, that's going to have the highest quality data available for any kind of environment projection. And that's exactly what I'm going to show in my environments course here soon. It's not easy to put that all together. It took me a while to figure it out, but it's really cool once you do figure it out. Okay. Yeah, large scale environments is time consuming. I agree. Think about trying Unreal and explore. So I was thinking on trying out Unreal Engine and explore if exporting USD could be proper workflow for Houdini. Really curious about it. Yeah, me too. I haven't really done USD with Unreal and Houdini yet, but that would be interesting. Okay, well, I think that about does it for now here, you guys. Yeah, what else? We also had this project here. I guess now that I just showed you, I should probably talk about it. Yeah, let's quickly talk about this because this is actually really cool. This here is from Jafar, and this is a Houdini rain simulation. I can already tell you right now, it's really good. One thing I want to let you guys know is that when you're making a close-up rain effect, it's all about layers. It's all about recognizing that rain is not just, a fluid sim. It's about compositing. It's about having volumes. It's about thinking about splashes and ripples. It's not like there's one big sim for everything. And this project is a great example of that. If we take a look at what Jafar was saying, he said This is a recent personal project to try some of the new features in Houdini 20. The main focus was mainly on USD and Karma. For the rain sim, I used a pop and sop ripple solver. Comp done in Houdini Cops. Karma CPU was used for rendering. Environment models are for megascans. And so just to show you that, like, this is a variety of particle simulations. We're using the sop ripple solver. You're using all kinds of tools in the toolkit to make a really convincing rain effect happen. You can use vellum fluids for some of this stuff. If you want the fluids to cling to the object, which is really characteristic of rain, then you can use the flip solver for that. But anytime you guys are thinking about snow, rain, environment effects of any kind, it's a really good study because it is usually a combination of all sorts of things. As far as what can improve this, I know what can improve this. A flickering lights in the eyes. That would just take this up a few notches, and it's easy to do. You just have to shade for, the little light thing, the little spotlight glass, if you will, and then just have it flicker on with a nice orange to contrast the blue color. That would be awesome. And it would also light up the rain, which would look amazing. So yeah, that's my main advice. I would love to see this with the lights flickering on and off. Let me know if you actually end up doing that, Jafar. I think this is just asking for that. All right. That's about it here, you guys. Thanks for joining me live. This was a really good one. Let me know if you have any artworks in the future that you would like me to cover. Again, you can add that to the Discord. Be on the lookout for Environments 1. I'll probably drop that next week. Again, thank you for watching and have a great month. See ya.